Welcome to Below the Line, where we talk about working in Hollywood from the crew perspective. My name is Skid. I'm a former assistant director and your host.
Quiet on the set.
Today, we're speaking with film industry professionals who have written books, and I've got three guests. First, Melanie Ragone, author of Below the Line, a film crew survival guide. Nice to see you again, Mel.
Thank you for having me, Skid.
Next, Rob Spera, author of the Film/TV Director's Field Manual, 70 Maxims to Change Your Filmmaking. Rob, welcome to Below the Line.
Thanks, Skid. Great to be here.
Finally, Ken Levin, you're the author of Great Exploitations, a Hollywood Fable. Glad you could join us, Ken.
Thank you so much for having me, Skid.
Listeners, there are no spoilers planned for today, although you might learn a truth or two about the film industry. You've been warned. To kick us off, let's have each of you say a little more about your book and talk about your industry background. Mel, why don't you get us started?
Sure. Thanks, Skid. I started in the industry as a first-generation filmmaker, and I started writing my book as I learned along the way, things that I kind of wish that I had known that I could potentially pass down, and never really kind of had the idea that I would write a book one day, but maybe. So I started kind of keeping notes in my phone. And then as I kind of got my bearings on set, I was like, you know what, this is actually something that I would like to pass on, because I'm very much a proponent of education. And especially since I didn't start with I didn't have a single soul family member, anybody that I knew that was in the film industry. So I felt like what I had learned, if it could help literally one person make it easier, and especially coming up as a woman in male-dominated fields, I felt like it would be very helpful to pass on my knowledge. And that's kind of what prompted me to start actually, fleshing out chapters. And then as the years went on, because this took a minute, granted, I finished it, published it last year, but it was everything that I learned along the way that I thought would be valuable to pass along to basically the next generation of filmmakers.
Thanks, Mel. We're going to come back to some details on that. But Rob, you go next. Your book is also a guide of sorts, but you are taking a different approach. Talk some more of your background and what the book's about.
Well, my background is as a director, primarily. I started out as an actor, a young character actor, couldn't get work, decided I was not going to spend my life looking for work for 20 years. So I started to produce so I could act. I discovered directing and never looked back, really. So, 40 years directing in TV, theater, and film, and 40 years teaching as well. I started teaching right away in my early 20s. I don't know what the hell I was teaching, but I started teaching it only because I wanted to be able to make a living and also at the same time be learning my craft. So I opted not to want to work in restaurants or bars. So I started teaching really early on. Told 10 friends, I'm the teacher, you're in my class, shut up. And if you like what you hear, bring some people in. And you guys are here for free, but they're going to pay. But it stopped being about money about 30 years ago and started being just about the education, which I've never stopped and never will stop. So the book started out as something for my students, because they asked me over the years, everyone wants books that they can refer to. And I found myself having a difficult time recommending anything, mostly because I had not found a book over the years that would actually change my filmmaking directly in a practical way. So the books were written, great filmmakers who wrote the books, great writers, right? The ideas are sound, but they're so dense. Right? I own all of them. I bought people copies of them, but they sit on my shelves, right? I maybe get through a chapter and a half, and that's where I stop. And that's for a guy. I love reading about directing. I love the process. I just can't get through it. So I wanted this book to be kind of I wanted to distill the concepts to their essence, so that within a page or a page and a half, the concept is clear and there's an easy and practical solution to the problems, right? And so easy solutions with big ramifications down the road. So the book is 70 of these maxims that will literally change your filmmaking in a very practical way. And it relates to camera, to actors, to story, and most importantly, to leadership and the right attitude we bring to the work, which I really like a lot in Melanie's book. Melanie's book is far beyond tips of the trade. She really gives a clear understanding as to what we bring to the table as human beings in order to make it through what is a really grueling process, particularly for crew and below the line people. So that's where my book came from.
Now, Ken, you've taken a different approach. Rather than a guide to Hollywood, your book is fiction. Tell us about what's going on there and some of your background that informed it.
Sure. I started in the early 80s and just gravitated towards the property department. Did commercials for the first 12 years of my life and then moved into TV and eventually settled in kids TV. And I'd worked on Lizzie McGuire and all of the kid shows from the early 2000s to the present day, more or less. And from Lizzie McGuire, I went on to Wizards of Waverly Place and many others between Nickelodeon and the Disney world. And in the time I spent there, I observed everything that was going on around me and how the interaction was between below the line and above the line, and how we as below the line and a department head, a property master at that point, interpreted what the creatives were looking for. And I realized it was my job to align my vision with their vision. And that way I kept being employed because I kept giving them what they wanted and then adding to so I was essentially felt like a writer on a show because I could bring my own creative input to the show and sell it to them, pitch it to them as would anybody else. I've always been a writer. I used to write magazine articles in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I've written fiction for many, many years. I gravitate towards fiction more than anything because I can sit and wait and express myself, unlike any other in person. I can say things on paper that I wouldn't say to your face. But I was just fascinated with this interaction between the two and how we absolutely exploit each other, and hence the name of the title, Great Exploitations. It was a fascinating journey once I started writing that and to realize the depths that we really go to justify our work, justify our existence, and justify our pay. I mean, when we, as below the line people, feel abused or exploited, it doesn't help our work ethic. But when producers and above the line show their appreciation and how hard we work, it makes a huge difference. And the other side of the coin, when in Melanie's book, it was great because you really got that sense in a real world situation. They have to bring to the table what you bring to the table. You both have to match each other's skill, work ethic, and gratitude. There was never a day in this industry that I wasn't absolutely grateful to be there because I knew that there were 10,000 people that could take my place instantly. Well, maybe not as a property master, but certainly as somebody working in the industry, you are expendable. I'm sorry to say that, but I think that's the things I try to bring to young people who come into the industry is, listen, there's lots of people behind you that are dying to get here. Be careful and be appreciative of what you have, and keep it in perspective as you move along in your journey.
Ken, to follow up on what you've been saying about Mel's book, I also want to take a moment to point out that Rob, while your background as a director and actor, those are above the line roles. But it was very apparent to me in going through your Maxims that there's also a recognition of crew in this same sort of relationship we're talking about. All of you, I think, your books speak and provide advice on navigating the industry. Talk to me more about that, and let's just have a discussion.
Well, I'll say from my take, even though I'm a director, I absolutely hate the auteur theory. I think it's done more damage to the industry because the idea that one person actually made this film that may have anywhere from 100 to 200 to 300 other people working on it is the height of arrogance. I try to, looking at the process and learning over the years that, the director's responsibility is to point the direction, is to set us on a mission, and then open the doors to the really smart, talented, creative people around you to carry you there. And the idea that you're doing it by yourself is insane. And I think when you open the door to it, you open the door to creating a community of positivity, of openness, and it's your responsibility to create. It's a community. There are smaller towns in this country than the number of people you have on a movie set, and you have to tend to it. It's not just about making a good movie, right? You really have to tend to the human beings who are there working with you. There are hundreds of them. And you have to be really focused on actually making sure that not only do they have a great experience, right, that they have a great experience that will then find its way into your movie, because that's something, it's such a rare blessing to be able to work with that many creative people at one time, and to not open the door to what they bring to the table is a mistake. It's a mistake as a human being, and it's a mistake as a filmmaker not to engage them in that way. So for me, I see the role as not being someone who is the boss or in charge or needing to have all the ideas or be the smartest guy in the room, because directing can easily tap into, you wanting to flaunt your ego. There's no room in the process for your ego. It's simply you open the door, point the direction, and then as a group, you make a movie. So that's my take on the work. And I don't want to spend the day around people who are not happy and contributing, right? It's not the way I want to.
100%, 100%.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what you said about how the importance of crew was the reason why I opened my book with my love letter to crew, because I genuinely love my crew and I do have aspirations to direct as well. I started as a PA and worked my way up to grip, best boy, and key. And as I got into those positions of authority, and I do work extremely close with the director, like I work with the DP, but I also work very close with the director, and I've worked with really good directors and I've worked with really awful directors. And like you said, Rob, it is really, really important to listen to, not only like I'm split like right down the middle when it comes to like creativity and like technical stuff, because my job is very technical being a grip, and it's also very dangerous. So it's like I am interested in obviously the creative process, but I'm also keeping in mind too that I need to be very conscious of the safety and health, not only just the physical well-being, but the mental well-being of my crew, because we work really long fucking hours.
Right.
And it's very stressful. And I've only worked on the big shows, so I'm very aware of the stresses and pressures. And it is really important. Like as a director, I can't stand it when I spend 16 hours on set and we wrap and the director's nowhere to be found. It's like, okay, peace out, you guys, fuck off. It's like, no, come around and thank your crew. Come around and say, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for, because like you said, we are part of the collaboration process. That director couldn't get that shit with all the crew. It's just not possible.
Right.
And I do really feel like it's important to thank crew and to make them feel, like you said, I do feel grateful to be working on set, but I don't need an attaboy every 5 minutes, but it's nice for the director to come around and I just worked like a small commercial the other day, side note, and the director it was literally the shortest shoot I've ever been on. She came around and thanked everybody. And it's like, that's so nice. It's like, doesn't take that long to do that.
It does make a difference. It makes a huge difference, Melanie.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
and that's part of what Rob was saying is the collaborative process. It's so important. And there's so many different personalities you are dealing with. And you don't know how someone woke up in the morning, and you don't know what's going on in their families necessarily. But over a course of a 40-day shoot or whatever, you find those things out. And they become more than that person who's moving a light or pulling a prop or acting in in the scene. That to me is where the magic comes in. It's when I was in college and working on my professor's films, that this feeling, this euphoria came over me like a drug. And I was like, oh, I need more of that. I need more of that to trigger my serotonin levels, because it really did. And throughout my career, I'm retired a year now. I felt that, on so many different occasions, and I felt the complete opposite of that. As Melanie will tell you, and Rob knows, you know, I have sat in the corner and cried because of something I may have screwed up or was so, passionate about. And I think that's sometimes our downfall is as Melanie and Rob work more directly on set. Property Master really works more offset,
Mhm.
and preps for the people that are working on the set. That's not to say that we don't, trust me, I've spent years on set, as assistant property master and whatnot. But we have the luxury of being able to come and go as a property master. But nonetheless, it's easier for me as I wrote a fiction book, and I wrote a book because I wanted to entertain people about the business. I wanted to write a book that wasn't about rich actors, wasn't about rich executives. I mean, The Studio is a fantastic show and I love it. But that's what it's about. It's about executives at the industry in the industry. And I wanted to write something that was much more from the below the line, or Melanie's perspective, my perspective, even Rob's perspective, because he's got such a great objective view of what goes on below the line because he knows, he sees the jobs. And I think those of us below the line have such immense respect for directors and above the line that know how our jobs work. And as Melly was saying, the appreciation that is shown at the end of a hard, long day, is really goes much further than I think a lot of people realize. And the acknowledgement of, that little thing. Hey, the way Melanie, the way you rigged that was amazing. I mean, your job is creative within your, because you have to find creative ways to engineer, but it's more engineering, from a base standpoint. Rob is all over the place between the engineering and the organization of those talents to see the vision of his executive producers or himself forward is a completely different motivation. And I think that I set out to look at those motivations and how the below the line satisfies above the line and exploits above the line and vice versa. And I wanted to show, as Melanie was saying, the brutality of the industry. It is a brutal place. My blurb starts out with Hollywood is brutal, because it is. But for some reason, we love that brutality.
Well, I always say that you have to be a little crazy. Everybody that works in this industry is crazy. There's good crazy and there's bad crazy, but they're everybody who sticks it out. I mean, especially with what's been happening in our industry, which I know we're going to talk about too, is that you really do have to be a little nuts. And I do mentor a couple of people right now, and I tell them, because I've got one guy who literally over the last year, for the first 6 months we were getting to know each other, he was just like not complaining, but just kind of lamenting that like he couldn't find any work, that he's working for free, and that this and that. And I was just like, you know what, dude, I'm going to give it to you straight. I shoot from the hip. Shut up. Because there are people like me who have 15 years of experience. And I was on set the other day, and I mean, I'll share this with you guys because I'll tell you whatever, I'm an open book. I felt completely demoralized being on set the other day. I was literally on set on a shoot that was like Lance Bass was our talent, which was kind of cool.
I worked with him.
But I was just like standing there on set and I was going, is this what I have been reduced to in this industry? I literally am working with like a 3 freaking light setup. It's an interview. And I'm just like, and because I'm one where I need to feel useful, and I have so many skills and I've learned so much and I've accumulated so much knowledge over the years that I'm like, I can't believe that I'm working. I was grateful for the work. Believe me, I needed the money, but I was just like, this is so demoralizing right now. Like, I don't want to be working on this little set. I want to be out like working on these shows that I've been working on in lighting, but it is what it is right now. And it is a very tough business. And I do tell all the people that are thinking about getting in, make sure this is what you want to do, because it's a rough road.
Melanie brings up a great point, which is the insustainability of the industry is the way it is as a standard of living. It used to be, and all of you will identify with this, that we could work on a show and pretty much survive. If the show went on hiatus for 3 months, we were okay.
Right.
because we were doing 20 episodes, 23 episodes. Even when we did 13 episodes, it was sustainable.
Hmm.
Now you're down each TV, that is not movies, are down to the 6 to 10 episode range, and then you're looking at a 1 to 2 year lapse between season one and season two or three, four, whatever. That's not a sustainable industry, or a sustainable way to make a living. And I think now that's really what we're facing in terms of TV. Certainly, movies are their own animal, but they're taking their own direction in terms of the technologies and where they're going and effects.
Mhm.
There's a lot more green screen that we're shooting. So you're having to do, a little less art direction, although you have to provide foreground elements and elements to blend in with a green screen. You're not building these fantastic sets, but you are creating them in different ways, obviously through effects. So I just think people coming into the industry certainly need to realize that it's so different now, and it's important to diversify, as Rob was saying. And this is, I think, what one of the things that we were talking about is how to make the pivot, at the point when you can't sustain what you love and what you want to do. And for me, that was starting to write. I was approaching the end of my career, and I knew that as a writer that I was going to continue doing that. So I wrote this book 5 years before I retired, knowing that it would take me about that long to get it out there. And I was very lucky, and it did. And it's out there now. And I'm not saying that this is, but I'm going to continue. I have other books in me, and this is now going to be my other career. So I pivoted from that. But in the career sense, as Melanie was talking, she gained skills. She had to learn new skills. Rob, you had to learn new skills. We all had to learn new skills to up our game to stay with what was going on in our industry. In the early 90s, I learned Photoshop and Illustrator. Currently, before I retired, I learned how to 3D print and those types of things. So I was very up on the technology and how to keep myself aligned with what was going on and with what people wanted to see and what they expected from me as a property master. And that makes me more valuable and Melanie more valuable and Rob more valuable to those productions.
Yeah, well, I think we have to, acknowledge that, just because we have specific talents as artists, all of us and everyone out there, doesn't mean we are entitled to make a fantastic living at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have the right to express ourselves as artists, right? And you can do that all day, every day, but we don't necessarily have the right, or nor are we entitled to make it to be paid for it. There are a lot of people with a lot of talents, and I think the key for me is to understand that what it requires a good deal of planning, a good deal of thought, right, that comes behind a business plan that works for you. I think we've got to consider ourselves independent production companies in many ways, and we have to be willing to pivot. We have to be willing to plan. I've been pivoting from day one. Within a year, I realized, oh, I get it. There's no work for me. Well, I'm not going to continue this. I've got to shift. I'm going to need to produce so that I can act. And then in producing, I discovered directing. And then when I started directing, I started producing theater for me to direct. And I've been pivoting like that, right, all along the way, but always with a 5 year plan that allows me to lay down, right, what I want to achieve in a 5 year period, and then how am I going to achieve that? There are my aspirational projects, but more importantly, right, those are the projects I need someone else to get made for me because of the size or the money involved. Then I've got the projects that I'm shooting by myself all the time. Little scenes, little assignments, little things that keep me fresh and keep me growing, and also, very importantly, give me new elements to promote myself with on a regular basis. Right? I didn't shoot a film in school, my thesis film, and then wait 5 or 10 years to have that film get me a job. That was one piece of a promotional puzzle. Then you're building on those constantly so that you've always got something new and fresh. And on top of that, you're getting better at it as you move through it. So pivoting, I hear about, people are worried about AI and what's that going to do. I'm sure they had the same arguments and concerns when sound came in. It's like, what are we going to do? It's going to ruin, and we all have our own opinions about that, but you pivot. Right. And it's not about pivoting away from your goals forever. It's simply about making an attempt to find a way to keep fresh and relevant and moving forward without complaining, right? Negativity gets you nowhere. As soon as we start to introduce cynicism or negativity to our work, you should quit, because our work is not about that. Our work is about joy and bringing joy to people, whether it's through comedy or drama. And as soon as that pilot light goes out, you're finished. So, right, just get used to the fact that you're going to have to pivot. No one owes you anything, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You do have a talent that you should, and a gift that you should be grateful for, and you find a way to build right over time. Those 5-year plans, I still have them. I still use them. And the most recent adjustment was that, look, the industry's getting a little crazy right now. I'm not quite sure where things are going. I've directed narrative films and television and theater forever, but you know what? I'm not sure where this is heading. So I pivoted to doing documentaries. And that right within a 2-year plan period, I was able to generate a couple of documentaries that I feel really strongly about, that I'm very excited about. I've never done it. It's all brand new. It's very exciting, but it definitely keeps me moving forward. Right? There's no time or room for us to get demoralized by it. The business is a challenge, and we can't take it personally. We just have to, right, look at what we have to offer, look at those resources, right, and then find a way to put all that together to move forward.
I was thinking too about what you guys are saying, because I mean, I'm maybe just a little bit different as far as I didn't really set out to be a grip. When I was PAing and I was doing it on smaller sets, and then I met somebody who was a grip, and he's like, "Hey, you're already gripping," and I didn't even really know what it was. And so once I got into the department, and I was like, oh, this is actually a really awesome department, because we work with every other department on set. Grip is very unique in that sense. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to sit here for a minute and I'm going to learn everything there is to learn. I used set as my school. And I thought, well, one day when I'm directing and producing, I will understand everything that happens on set, simply because of the department that I worked in. And in my former life, I had a late start in the film industry. In my former life, I was a graphic designer. And that has really helped me with my writing projects. Like you said, like you got to learn special skills. You got to have, and I've been developing a couple of television shows over the last 5-6 years. And the graphic design thing and presentation, I just actually helped somebody with their pitch that I'm keying. We're supposed to be shooting in March, fingers crossed, where I'll be key grip on. But she sent me her pitch, and I looked at it, and it was kind of like, it was okay. It was like a PowerPoint presentation, though. I was like, do you mind if I log in and polish this for you? And because it's really an interesting story that I believe in. It's a female flag football league. And I went into it and thought, okay, this doesn't feel like sports at all. So I kind of took my graphic design creative eye and kind of polished everything for her. And I have people that hire me to do graphics and stuff for them. So I'm like, okay, if this is what I got to do to keep, these skills sharp and stuff. But yeah, you definitely have to diversify, because like you said, this industry it's difficult. I like it because it is difficult. It's not like, okay, I show up every day and I log in and answer emails, and the man tells me when I can go home. I like that there's kind of like this challenge to it, as terrifying as sometimes as it's been. But I'm just like, okay, I think of like the lowest point where I've like drained the savings account or whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, I survived that. If I can survive that and not be stressed that there's no money in the savings account anymore. And I tell people that too, these younger kids that are getting in. I was like, yeah, if you come from money, you're good. But I was like, you have people who, most of the film students that are from overseas are coming over here, and I was like, just be prepared that you may not be working for a couple of months. You can't let that stress you out. And like you said, like introduce negativity into it. You just have to, like, if this is really what you want to do, like it's important to know that it is that's why I pulled no punches in my book it is a rough industry. It really is, for more than just the physicality of it, but it just kind of does really take a toll on like the worrying about not having a show or not having that next gig, or it is a constant hustle. Like you were saying, you're always working on something. It's a constant hustle in this industry.
It is, and I think that when you have to realize that you have to, especially as the three of us are authors, we have to be our own marketing teams as well. It's the
Hmm.
same thing in the industry. You have to be your own marketing team in terms of looking for that next work. It is about you have to network, you know what, and the more you work, I remember when I started PAing that I was fantastic. I was amazed at how it just kept snowballing for me. I was a good PA, I did what I was told. I couldn't stand being a PA, but I sucked it up because I knew that if I wanted to do something else. And what Melly was saying, I fell into props, and I don't think anybody, unless you're in the family, being a property master is not something that you can ever study. It's nothing you could really, I mean, you could do props in theater and things, the same thing. But prop master in TV and movies is just it's its own animal. And I mean, there's not very many of us in the world. And I'm very proud to say that I was a successful property master and worked. I mean, being retired, it's like I did the marathon. I got to the marathon. I got to that part of the end, and I'm extremely happy. I have no FOMO, no fear of missing out at this point in my life. But what I want to say was Rob was saying absolutely about pivoting. When I was doing commercials, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore because I'm starting to get angry because I'm not liking, how the spoon is sitting from 30 feet across the room on a table. And I moved to TV and I was like, oh, this is so much better. You have more creative autonomy. You're not, dealing with people who don't know your job as much. It was wonderful. And then that's where I just stayed that between that and movies. But I love Rob's 5-year strategy because I clearly followed that on my own, in terms of writing.
Now, you guys have been talking about some of the challenges of the industry. And again, anyone that goes into this needs to go with clear eyes. But none of your books, I think, are meant as cautionary tales. In other words, warning people off. Ken, even your book, as the satire, is not meant, in my reading, to discourage people from working in the
Oh
industry,
no, by no means. It's meant to entertain you. It's meant to show the absurdity sometimes
right?
of what goes on, and I take that absurdity and then it was absurd? Yeah, great. It's not absurd enough. Let's make it more absurd and more absurd and more. Just keep going till it's like. But the absurdity is really where the truth is. So much of what we do becomes absurd, and we have to laugh at it. We have to have a sense of you. If you don't have a sense of humor in this industry, you really will not last.
So, show of hands, who has watched The Studio?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. And that's all hands are up.
Like, oh my God.
Absolutely
Like
in love with it.
total
In love
side
with it.
note, but yeah, it's like, holy shit, like my favorite scene because I've broken up a fight between two grips on set. Like straight up, I have seen the crazy. I didn't write about everything in my book because I wanted to also tell some stories on camera with a docu-series one day. But like there's so many stories I didn't tell in my book. And when I saw the scene, one of my favorite ones is when they're standing on the studio lot and he's got the fucking burrito and she's like, are you going to throw a burrito at a young woman? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then he throws it and then the whole fucking guy crashes and the set collapses behind him. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
that shit happens. Like
Yes, it does.
that show is so legit. And I mean, granted, it's Seth Rogen. He knows he's been in the business for long enough,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
they knocked it out of the park with that shit. And like, it's not even ridiculous. Like people who don't work in the industry that watch it probably think, oh, that's so ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
so
No.
overblown. And it
Parking
is
your
so
car in the
not.
driveway and ruining the one-shot take.
Oh, the one, yeah,
Happens.
the oneers are phenomenal. I love that I'm sitting there going, oh, I know that they put the person in the back seat of that car. Like when they drove up to that house in the Hollywood Hills, and then it's cool because I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. They show you literally how they got the shot, and then I watch it and I'm like, oh, I was right. I knew how they got it. It's cool though to watch it. It's just like that is such a well done show. Really, really is.
Last season, episode 4, I did an interview with the assistant director and the camera operator
Oh,
from
cool.
that show and
Oh,
broke
awesome.
down not
Yes.
only
Yes.
some of those scenes, but some of as well. So, listeners, we're all endorsing the show. If you enjoyed it as well, check out that episode.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But to follow up on that question of your book, speaking to people in the industry, give me a sense in your mind, each of you, where in someone's career or what sort of role are they going to get the most positive out of your books?
As a fiction book, I wanted to entertain, and my audience was really that person that sits in the audience at a sitcom and only gets to see what goes on in front of them. I wanted to put people in the seat, in my seat, in someone else's seat, in your seat, in the AD seat, Melanie's seat, whatever. I wanted all the seats to be filled by the people that were reading it. So I wrote it from a very cinematic standpoint, and that's the way I think, when I sit down and write, I think of a scene, and then I act it out in my head, and then I just describe what I'm writing. And I wanted, in a very screenwriting sense, I wanted an audience to feel that. And somebody in the industry will get the same sense of what it's like to experience that. But I was really more about the reader and entertaining than I was about informing, even though the two go hand in hand.
Mhm, mhm.
Mine was, it was interesting when you said before, Skid, about that none of our books were really like a cautionary tale or like writing like don't go into the industry kind of thing. When I wrote my first draft and I read it, I'm like, whoa, this sounds real. Like it sounded very much like I was not really in a great place and I was fucking hating gripping. And I mean, it wasn't like I don't think that I ever hated gripping, but I was just kind of like, the guys had gotten to me. It was, it wears down on you. And I was tired. I was exhausted. I was working a lot of shows, a lot of months, and I just wasn't in a good headspace. And I remember reading it back going, oh my God, this sounds like I hate the film industry. And it definitely has been a love-hate relationship for me. But I didn't want it to sound like I was like, don't go into the industry, So I think that when I went back through, mine started out more as strictly like, here's how the industry is, more like technical and more, it had a different it was a different animal before. And then as I went through it, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to write it more where it's like more personal advice. I want to literally come through as here's my advice of what you should do, keeping it still shooting, from the hip. But I just feel like I wrote it for, anybody it could be for anyone who's starting out in the industry brand new, or it could be somebody who's maybe been in for a couple of years and are not really sure like how to navigate the industry, or also too, just kind of a little, mine has, the department breakdowns and what everyone does on set. It's definitely also got some educational material to it, aside from the personal advice. Like there is some technical advice and knowledge.
So much knowledge.
Yeah, the ins and outs of just in the hierarchies on set. It's like it very much is I learned trial by fire. And I'm very good in a trial by fire situation. Some people are not, and they kind of like shrink back and they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be on set. Maybe I'll just go work in the production office. But set is a really good place, even if you do want to direct and produce, and like or someone's dead set on being a DP. Like I give the advice that if you want a DP, you need to grip, you need to gaff, and you need to operate like to be a good one. Like I'm not saying you can't just go jump and be a DP. Sure, do it, but if you want to be a good one and be like very well-rounded person, I think it's really important for every person who wants to be a PA. Look how they get treated. Look how it's a very rough job to start, but it gives you kind of a good scope of what's happening. You can always tell the directors that come on set who didn't come up working on set, where they just like either got the job from their friend or the parent or the niece.
Michael Bay. Oh, sorry.
Oh, believe I can see him. I can spot him a mile away. Same thing with the producers. They walk on set and they've got on like, dress shoes, furry jacket, and they're in the tent. And I'm like, oh, come on, in the heating tent.
Yeah, I also think though, Melanie, that your book is really it's a great book for, well, clearly targeted at below the line people.
Yeah.
I think everyone above the line should read it as well, especially those who've not come up through the ranks of below the line. Just having a real clear, honest appraisal of what those jobs are like, what those lifestyles are like, can't help but make you a better director, producer, writer to know what's going on in that way. So I think it appeals to all, right, in that regard.
Thank you.
I agree.
I think my book, clearly the title targets it at directors in film and television. The target is is much wider than that. I think in the same way I recommend Melanie's book to people above the line as well as below the line, right? I think we should all know each other's jobs and all know what the thought process is, all know what we're going through. So while targeted directly for directors, for filmmakers, it'll make you a better filmmaker. But also, I think those of us who don't have those aspirations, I think it's going to give you a real clear sense as to where the director is coming from, what their needs are, what their vulnerabilities are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and make you a better team player. Because it's all about the team playing, and it's all about the idea of a bunch of humans, right? Many humans coming together to do make believe, right? As adults, right? It's a beautiful process, right? What we get to do, the way we get to live our lives is such a positive, to have that as a job, right? As a regular job is pretty remarkable. But I think we should all know how it works at all ends.
Yeah. And like sometimes I marvel and look around and like literally I've said to like a crew member, and I'm like, man, it is amazing that we even got anything done today. Like it's just like it's you when you're watching kind of everyone working on set and just like it's organized chaos at all times.
Right. Right.
It's organized chaos. That's kind of what I wanted to present in my book as well, even as a fiction book, that it is always chaos in some fashion. You know, whether there's some department, there's always things going on that you don't know about. And I think that's what makes for fascinating reading and fascinating job, which is I wrote a chapter where I juxtaposed between what was going on set and what some things that were happening off set that nobody would ever see, you know, and how those things two parallel each other all the time, and we never see that. There's so many things that we don't see that go on set.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, know that those of us, Melanie and the three of us who've all worked on set, know how
All
hard
four of us have
production
worked
work.
on set. Ken, excuse
Oh,
me.
I'm sorry, Skid. I did
All
not
four
mean,
of us have been on set.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Excuse me, but what I wanted to get across was how hard production works in the offices behind us. And I think that they end up getting a lot of the short end of the stick because they don't get to see the glory on set. They don't necessarily have the director coming around and thanking them every day, you know, and they're always there before we get there and always like Teamsters after we leave.
Yep. I still go with that. The Teamsters are still have the hardest job.
I agree.
I stand by
I
it.
agree.
And when we wouldn't have anything without them because those trailers at 3 a.m. that are set up at base camp didn't get there by themselves. You know, like
That's right.
I still,
That's right.
I
And we don't know what they went through to get those trailers there.
Nope. I maintain that they still have the hardest job and are still the most important side talent. Nope. Sorry. Teamsters all the way.
100%.
Taking a step back from the material of your books, I want to ask a question for any of our industry listeners who might also be thinking they have a book in them. And that is, what was the process of publishing for each of you?
I'd been published for quite a while. Did magazine articles and so my published experiencing was through that. And I knew the process. And as a fiction book, it's a very different process from a nonfiction book. And today's industry is so different than what it was and where it's probably going. But today with self-publishing, you know, anyone can be an author in terms of getting your book out there. And that's good and that's bad. It's good because anyone can be an author. It's bad because sometimes I think it ends up homogenizing writing to a certain extent because bad books get out there and mix with books that don't get as much recognition as they would. Like I think Rob's book and Melanie's book are really good books, but they might get lost in the mix of bigger books. But for me, I'll say the publishing process was I queried about 250 plus agents, all of them rejecting this before I found a publisher on my own. Bear Manor Media, publisher of all books, entertainment, to publish my book. And Ben Omart, who's the publisher, was great about it. He saw in the book what others couldn't see in terms of value to the industry. And I'm extremely appreciative of that. And yes, we all have to do our own marketing. You know, the odds of us getting picked up by one of the big five are very slim these days. I mean, you really need to have just a gazillion followers and the whole influencer thing and platform thing. It is all true. And I think for those of us that haven't been brought up. I haven't been brought up in that, but it's a new skill that I have to pivot towards, as we were talking about before. Marketing myself, that's really the publishing thing is about marketing yourself, getting your book out there and finding the right audience. And it's difficult.
For me, I dabbled for about 2 months, trying to pitch my book to agents and to publishers. And I realized this moves at the same pace that selling screenplays does. I was just not in the mood. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna investigate self-publishing immediately. I want the book out there. I want it there for my students. I want it there accessible. I also thought because it's my book, it tailors to a niche market, where Ken's book is more toward the general public and entertainment. I'm tailoring to a niche market, so there's not a lot of upside for publishers necessarily. There's also not a lot of upside for me financially. Right? They're still going to need to make some money on the book. So self-publishing seemed like the right way to go. And I worked with Salem Press, and they were remarkable in terms of the resources and support they gave me from editing down to graphic design and ideas and recommendations, and also getting it out on the market. So they also, right, it was also one of the better deals financially. I get a high percentage of the sale of the book, which was unheard of. So with all of the math involved with my decision, it really came down to self-publishing being the most direct way to get it done, with the bigger profits for me down the road. Although, like many of these books, you're not driven by profits for these.
No.
Are made, right? You're helping a very specific group of people. They're really there to do the good work you want them to do, and so you find a way to get it out there as quickly as possible, and that seemed the best way for me to go at the time.
I also self-published, and I agree with Rob where I was just not in the mood to I know that I had a really good book, and the information that I had in there was more important for me to get it out. And I knew that, especially this was during COVID time when I was writing mine, and I'm like, I thought about getting a publisher, but I had actually a couple of friends who went through a publisher, and all three of them said the same thing, that they lost a little bit of control. The creativity was stifled a little bit. They didn't get to make certain decisions. And I'm a control freak, and I know what I'm good at. I know I'm good with graphics. I know I'm good with, I knew I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I've got this product now. What do I do with it? And so I chose to self-publish with BookBaby. And BookBaby, I hired my own editor. BookBaby is very a la carte. I would highly recommend them. I had a very positive experience with them.
Yeah.
They fill my orders. They process, if a bookstore wants to order through them, they process everything. But I chose to self-publish with them because I really, like you said, it was, once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I have this great product, and I have to market it. But also too, is that if anyone is thinking about, like you asked, if someone's thinking about writing a book, think about why you're writing it. Are you writing it because you want to be an author of books? Are you writing it because you're trying to, my purpose was to educate the next generation of filmmakers. I literally call it, it's a very expensive business card. I'm a screenwriter. I don't want to write books. I wrote it so I could get the information out. And also too, what can happen is, what's still possible is, once I'm working on television shows right now, once those are up and running, my book can still get published, republished. Maybe I rewrite 2-3 more chapters or add on some more. But now that it's out, it's done. And, I was like, checked it off. So it was, but yeah, I definitely think that if someone is thinking about writing a book in this industry, why are you writing it? What's the end goal of what you feel that you want to do with this book? And that's why I went with self-publishing, because I just felt like I had more creative control. And plus too, I already have gone through the process of, with my scripts I've got for television, is that, yeah, you have to market yourself. And I wasn't going to sit here and reach out to agents. And I just did, like you said, I wasn't in the mood. I was like, if I can self-publish, then that's what I ended up doing.
Well, Melanie, you hinted at some of your future plans, but let me make the question more explicit. What's next for each of you?
So right now well, I've been working on, I've got a live action television series that I have been working on writing, developing for probably over 7 years now. So this is something else that I want anybody who's listening to know, that shit doesn't happen overnight until it does. But developing a television series is very time consuming. I do have screenplay ideas on the back burner, but I'm a television person. I'm writing also. What's on the front burner right now, I'm actually getting ready to pitch an adult animated series that I've been working on since Trump got into office the first time. But I'm at the pitch stage right now. Everything is I'm literally putting all the pieces of the puzzle together right now, and it's kind of fun. But my intention is to be a showrunner. I still would like to direct and produce, but that's what I'm currently working on, like right now. Every day, wake up, work on this television show.
Mm-hmm.
How about you guys? Rob, what's your plans?
My ongoing plan, which I've has been ongoing now for over 40 years, is my teaching, which is always my base, because it's where I know I can go somewhere a few times a week and actually connect with people who are interested in discussing the ideas. I'm not talking deals or business. We're just going to discuss the ideas. And my ability to be in a classroom for the past 40 years and meet new filmmakers, meet young filmmakers, be in touch with what's changing, what's new, what's different, how do you stay relevant? So for me, it's a great give and take with students, and I will never give that up. I've done it throughout my career. It's a constant. And I do that online now, on Zoom, like we are doing this right now, and so people can Zoom in from anywhere all over the world and make that happen. It's key for my creative development, which continues, and for my own pilot light to stay lit. The where in terms of my work, like I mentioned, I shifted to documentaries, so I'm in the midst of. We're just going out to sell a documentary that I got the rights to, and we're really feel strongly about it. It's in the true crime world. It's actually an ongoing limited series that would touch on a very important crime case. Each season focuses on a specific case, but more importantly, focuses on the detective behind it and their personal life. So it really focuses on the personal life and the toll that a lot of these detectives take on as they try to solve the bigger cases. And it's called The Abyss. And then I've got a project I've been working on that I believe in for a long time. The first crop of space shuttle astronauts that included 7 women for the first time. So those women, kind of competing against the military test pilots, the testosterone fueled test pilots, makes for some really great drama and really great comedy, all set against the backdrop of the space shuttle program. So keeping all of those alive and moving forward constantly.
Both of your shows, those sound phenomenal. I'm in. Like producer, I'm in. Like those sounds really cool.
Thank you.
So, Ken, what's next for you?
Well, as I said, I retired from the industry officially a year ago, but I have lots of books planned. Like I said, this is what I wanted my second career to be. As Melanie was saying, I have a few screenplays that I've written. But I learned as a writer, was taught long ago, if you want to get a screenplay made, write a really good book. And many will say that, and you can, if you look at, and that's not anything obviously against your stuff, Melanie, but it's very hard to write a screenplay, a television pilot, and see that to fruition. Whereas writing novels for me is you create a base of characters that people can read and identify with, and then it makes its natural progression to a screenplay or other form of media. For me, as far as Great Exploitations, some have asked, do you see more stories for this character? I don't know. I kind of didn't. I wrote it as a one-off, as kind of my homage to the industry. I have so many other stories. Actually got 2 other books I'm working on now. I'm an aviation enthusiast. I have another book I'm working on now called Harmony and Speed, which is about a female acrobatic pilot who, after an accident, loses her place in the sky and must re-find her spirit. And I have I have two other aviation books that I'm planning on writing. One is a historical fiction book about a Boeing China Clipper that made its way back to the United States on December 6th, 1941, when World War II broke out. And I made a 30,000-mile journey. And there's been a nonfiction book written about this, but I've been dying to write a historical fiction book about it. So I've got that, and then several other books, and I've got stories, and I've got other essays that I write that I put out there. So, this is it's the best time as a writer. This is the best situation for me because I can do is spend all my time on writing, and I love it. Now I'm really fallen in love with this next career of mine.
Well, I'm wishing the best for all of your projects. One last pitch to our listeners. The holidays are upon us, and all of these books make good gifts. On that note, we'll call it a wrap. Thank each of you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Skid, and Melanie, and Rob.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for having me, Skid.
This was fun. Listeners, I always appreciate your feedback. My email address is skid@belowtheline.biz. That's BIZ. If you're new to the podcast, you should check out our archives, where there are more than 270 past episodes for your listening enjoyment. You can peruse those at our website, belowtheline.biz, or wherever you get your podcasts. Closing credits, thanks to Curtis Five for our music, John Wan for our logo, and to all of our listeners, I appreciate you. If you want to support us, consider a purchase. The logo is available on t-shirts, mugs, and stickers at redbubble.com. Other ways you can help. First, give us a positive rating wherever you get your podcasts. Second, tell your friends about an episode you enjoyed, because that's how we gain new listeners. All of that aside, whatever your engagement, the fact that you're still listening means a lot to me. Thanks again from Below the Line.
And I just want to side note, Melanie, Doom Patrol, I loved Doom Patrol.
It was, I wasn't on it full time. I was a day player, but I was like an everyday day player. And the grip crew, it's cool because Pam was the key grip, one of the only female key grips I'd ever worked for. And she was always trying to get me on her crew full time. And I was always like, I'd come on and day play with them, and then I'd have like a show lined up like a month later. And so when I went and worked on Doom Patrol, I was out there for 2 days, and it was cool because Brendan Fraser was there that episode that I remember.
I loved his character.
Such a sweet guy. And I remember the best boy came to me and there was like, hey, Pam wants you to come on full time. And I was like, shit, I can't again because I have a show lined up. But I worked with them long enough on Doom Patrol. Like I'd go back and forth, and then they'd still be shooting, and I'd be done with my show and I'd come back. And it was really a cool show to shoot. We shot at this mansion in Georgia that it was really weird. The mansion that we shoot in it was a old psych ward. Like there was a literally, this isn't a set that we built. This was a mansion that there were underground tunnels where they used to transport the patients from the hospital to this mansion. Like this is where we were shooting at. So there was all this weird shit going on. Like it was definitely haunted. And we, of course, the grips, and we had a Teamster that went with us. We went in the tunnels, and it was creepy as fuck, but it was just, it was so cool. And then like just anytime we shoot at the mansion, everybody kind of like, it was kind of a hard location, but it was so cool that we were all like, okay, cool. Like we get to shoot the mansion again.
I was also a fan
sorry,
of
Rob,
Doom Patrol.
I'm sorry, Skid. I got off track there.
Yeah, sorry, I got off track.
Well, I was also a fan. Rob, did you watch Doom Patrol, or are you going to take our recommendation?
Yeah, absolutely.